Hi, I'm Tax CPA Jim Trippon with some words of education on IRS tax settlements. IRS tax settlements can be done with IRS payment plans, tax negotiation, and using something called an offer in compromise. Here's what to do first. IRS tax settlements usually come into play in one of two situations. First, when a taxpayer owes money to the IRS that they can't pay in full immediately, they may be able to make some form of settlement. Or when the IRS claims a taxpayer owes money and the taxpayer disagrees. As a CPA with almost 30 years of experience settling IRS tax debts, I can tell you from experience that there are 3 steps in successfully settling a tax debt. They are, number 1, assessing your tax situation, number 2, devising a workable IRS strategy, and 3, making the tax settlement deal. So let's look first at assessing your tax situation, because that's the first step in a settlement. If you receive several notices from the IRS, pull them out and let's review them. Is the IRS clear about what they're trying to collect for? Next, get a copy of the tax return involved. Check it to get a handle if you really owe the tax. Sometimes taxpayers make mistakes on their tax returns and they really do owe money to the IRS. But almost as frequently, and many times, the mistake is made by the IRS and not the taxpayer. I remember a very interesting study done by the Government Accounting Office several years ago. The government's own accountant studied a sample of IRS notices and found an alarming percentage either contained errors or attempted to collect penalties and interest that weren't even owed. Now, of course, if you're working with an inexperienced tax advisor who might be more scared of the IRS than you are, the advice you're likely to get is to just pay the bill. But what if you don't owe the tax? Or even worse, what if you don't have the money? Well, really, the first step in any tax settlement is to assess what is truly owed if there's a legitimate basis to argue the tax was assessed in error. Now let's look at the next thing, devising a strategy. Once you've reviewed the IRS notices and your tax records, one of 2 situations is going to exist. Either you agree you owe the money or you disagree with what the IRS is claiming. Now if you disagree with the IRS, your strategy should be one to challenge the tax that they're attempting to collect. How this is best done depends on how much is owed and how old the tax debt is. For example, if the IRS claims you owe a couple $100, generally this type of situation can be resolved by correspondence. If you have good records, you can provide them to the IRS to prove you don't owe any money. But remember, always send photocopies and keep the original records safe in your files. Now, on the other hand, if the IRS claims you owe thousands of dollars, your strategy will probably need to be a little bit different. In this type of situation, it can take some face-to-face time with an IRS collections officer to clean up the mess. For example, you may need to file some past due tax returns if the IRS has filed what's called estimated returns for you, or you may need to provide documentation for why you don't owe the tax. Even if you agree you owe the tax that the IRS is attempting to collect, you may still have a reasonable cause to reduce the penalties and interest or negotiate a discounted lump sum payoff. This can either be done with an installment agreement in the case of paying over time, and sometimes even reducing penalties and interest with that, or through a process called offer and compromise, in the case of trying to use a discounted lump sum payoff. Now, if you owe thousands of dollars, your strategy really should be designed by a tax professional. Assuming you're not related to an IRS tax accountant, you can call our office at 713-661-1040 and hire us to assess your situation and develop a customized strategy for you. Now, next let's talk about making the IRS tax settlement deal. The final step in this process is to make the deal. The method of doing this will vary depending, once again, on how much is owed or the IRS claims is owed. For very small tax debts, like I've already noted, you can usually resolve those type of deals by correspondence. For mid-sized debts, where you maybe will make your full payment via monthly installments over 12 to 24 months, you normally can make that type of deal with the IRS over the telephone. Now, for large tax debts, anywhere from $10,000 to several millions of dollars, we'll often need to have a live conference or a series of conferences with an IRS collection officer or appeals group. If you need that kind of service, our CPA firm can help, and we can do this for clients who live in all 50 states. If you need help settling an IRS debt, we can represent you. So call us at Trippon & Company CPAs at 713-661-1040. We represent tax clients in all 50 states, and our phones are answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call us at 713-661-1040. Put our almost 30 years of experience to work for you today.